Chosen one. Have you ever felt like something inside you was dying, but you couldn't explain why? Like your soul was being crushed, not by the world, but by something higher. You look around, and everyone else seems to be living normally. But you? You're enduring battles no one sees, internal wars, invisible fires, loneliness so deep it echoes. This isn't depression. This isn't weakness. This is divine death. Yes, death. But not the kind the world understands, because before God can use you publicly, He will break you privately. Before the anointing comes, there must be a burial of who you thought you were, a burial of the version of you that couldn't carry what's coming. You weren't called to be comfortable. You were called to be crucified, in spirit, in ego, in expectation. And if you're going through that right now, this message is not just content, it's confirmation. You are not broken. You are being reborn. This is the price of the chosen. This is the fire that forges destiny. So stay until the end, because today, your soul will understand what your mind has been battling for years. If this resonates already, like this video to activate this word in your life. Subscribe if you're one of the hidden ones being prepared in silence, and comment 99 below as a prophetic symbol that something in you is dying, so something greater can finally live. Let's go deeper. No one tells you this at the altar. No one tells you that when God chooses you, He doesn't start by blessing you. He starts by breaking you, not to destroy you, but to extract the version of you that can't survive the weight of your purpose. See, when God marks someone, He doesn't elevate them first. He strips them. He doesn't put you on platforms. He places you in pits, because what He's building through you cannot be held by fragile hands or a prideful heart. This death isn't physical, but it's real, and it hurts deeply. You don't get celebrated, you get buried. Buried beneath misunderstandings, buried beneath betrayal, buried beneath seasons where it feels like God went silent. But what if I told you that silence is sacred? What if I told you God wasn't ignoring you? He was disabling your ego, because the version of you that He's about to resurrect can't be the same version that still craves validation, still fears rejection, still clings to comfort. So what does He do? He kills what's in the way, not out of anger, but out of intention. He lets the door close. He lets them walk away. He allows the betrayal. He watches your plans fall apart, not because He's cruel, but because He knows what your calling will demand of you later. God is not punishing you. He's pruning you, cutting off the weak branches, tearing away what's temporary, so that what remains is unshakable, unstoppable, untouchable by darkness. And yet, no one claps for this part. No one posts about the spiritual death. The chosen are often mistaken for the forgotten. People look at your isolation and assume you're failing. They don't know you're being formed, because God doesn't prepare you in the spotlight. He prepares you in the shadows. And that's why it feels so lonely, so brutal, so confusing. It's not because you're cursed. It's because you're carrying something so holy, He couldn't let you stay who you used to be. He had to bury the loud you, to awaken the listening you. He had to bury the impulsive you, to resurrect the discerning you. He had to bury the version of you that would fight for attention, so the one that walks in true authority could rise. And here's the part no one wants to admit. There's a funeral that happens before your mission begins, and you don't get flowers. You don't get visitors. You don't even get closure, because what's dying inside you isn't meant to be mourned. It's meant to be replaced. And while you may feel like you're losing everything, heaven sees you finally becoming usable. This is what dying before you die looks like. Your habits begin to suffocate. Your distractions feel disgusting. Your old identity starts to itch like a costume that no longer fits. Everything that once made you you starts falling away. And it terrifies you until you realize you were never meant to stay who you were. You were meant to be transformed. And the process, it's messy. It's cruel to the ego, but it is mercy to your destiny. Because if God didn't let certain things die, you'd still be chasing the wrong relationships, still begging for tables you've outgrown, still sabotaging the very blessing you prayed for. He kills it, so that what he planted in you can finally breathe. This is why the chosen don't look like everyone else. Because we're not just called to lead, we're called to die first. And the world won't understand it. Some of your own family won't understand it, but heaven knows. And one day you will too. Because the part of you that's dying right now, that part is the price for what's about to be birthed. And just when you think it's over, when it feels like there's nothing left, that's when resurrection starts whispering your name. But before that resurrection comes, there's one more thing you must face. And it's something almost every chosen one misunderstands. Something that doesn't look like death on the outside, but is often the deepest form of it. Let's talk about it. Next. Let's be honest. Nothing breaks a human faster than feeling abandoned, especially when you've given your heart to everyone. You used to be surrounded, included, loved. Then suddenly, silence. Phone doesn't ring. Invites stop coming. People start looking through you instead of at you. You wonder, did I do something wrong? But the answer is deeper than your emotions can comprehend. You're not alone because people hate you. You're alone because heaven separated you. God has a way of isolating his vessels, not to hurt them, but to hollow them out so that only his voice remains. It feels like exile, but it's consecration, because you cannot carry the holy while still clinging to the familiar. You've been pulled away from the crowd because what's on you was never meant for the crowd. And you feel it in your bones, don't you? You sit in rooms now and feel like you no longer belong. You're in conversations and realize your spirit isn't even there. You hear laughter, but something inside you is grieving. It's not depression, it's transition. The world hasn't rejected you. The Spirit has extracted you. He is drawing a line in the Spirit, one that cannot be crossed by those who haven't paid the same price. That's why the old friendships faded. That's why the relationship cracked without explanation. That's why the spaces you once thrived in now feel suffocating. Because you've outgrown them. Not because you're better, but because you're becoming different. The chosen don't fit. Not in cliques, not in comfort zones, not in culture. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to disrupt, and in order to carry that weight, God had to remove the noise, the attachments, the crutches. So now you walk alone, not because you're forgotten, but because you're in formation. God doesn't send without first hiding. And his hiding place, it looks like loneliness, but it's a womb. You're not being buried. You're being conceived again. He's recalibrating your identity, refining your discernment, teaching you how to stand alone, so when the storm hits later, you don't collapse for lack of applause. Because if you need validation, you'll never walk in revelation. That's why he's quieted the crowd. That's why he stripped away the voices, so that when he speaks, you know it's him. In the sacred silence of your isolation, he's giving you the blueprint, the instruction, the divine intelligence. But here's the mystery most people miss. God hides his most powerful warriors right before he launches them. Look through scripture. Every world shifter spent time in isolation. Moses, hidden in the desert for 40 years. Joseph, forgotten in prison. David, running from caves. Even Jesus, driven into the wilderness by the Spirit. Isolation isn't the absence of favor, it's the proof of it. He doesn't hide the average, he hides the anointed. Because the greater the assignment, the deeper the isolation. And here's where it gets real. You've been praying for breakthrough, but God is answering by separating you. Because the next version of you can't be built in the presence of distractions. So yes, it hurts, but it's holy. Yes, it's confusing, but it's consecrated. You're not being punished, you're being preserved. Because what God is placing on your life cannot be contaminated by the influence of people who were never assigned to your future. And if you're feeling this word hit your spirit right now, it's because your wilderness is not a mistake. It's a womb. And something is being formed in you that cannot be rushed, interrupted, or shared. This isn't isolation, it's incubation. And when the time is right, when the fire inside you is fully forged, He will call you forward, and everyone will wonder where you came from. But you'll know, you were being hidden in plain sight, not forgotten, but fashioned. But before God uses what's in you, He'll ask you to give up what you love. Not because He's cruel, but because spiritual power always comes with silent sacrifice. And that's what we'll uncover next. There's a cost to the calling, but no one preaches about this part. No one prepares you for the invisible deaths, the ones that don't get sympathy, the ones that happen behind closed doors, in the quiet, in the dark, in the stillness of the night, where no one claps and no one sees. See, people admire the anointing, but they don't understand the invoice, the sleepless nights, the constant warfare in your mind, the moments you wanted to give up but couldn't, because something sacred in you refused to die. What you carry isn't light, it's weighty. And to carry it, you had to let go of things that once held you together. You had to walk away from relationships that felt like home. You had to bury dreams that once lit your heart on fire. You had to say no to doors that looked like blessings, but would have poisoned your purpose. And no one knew. No one saw you cry on the bathroom floor, asking God if you were crazy for obeying Him. No one noticed when you said, "I'm fine," while carrying a storm in your chest. Because being chosen means choosing silence when you could defend yourself. It means walking away when your flesh wants to fight. It means losing battles on purpose, because winning them would cost you your soul. And here's the part no one talks about. Sometimes God doesn't take things from you. He asks you to lay them down, voluntarily, painfully, completely. Not because they're evil, but because they're not eternal. You didn't lose it. You offered it. And when you did, He didn't just see your sacrifice. He recorded it. Every scar you carry is a receipt of obedience, a receipt of spiritual maturity, a receipt of covenant. Heaven remembers the day you said no to that opportunity, because your spirit knew it would cost your purity. Heaven remembers the night you deleted that message, even when your heart was breaking. Heaven remembers when you kept serving, while everyone else left. These sacrifices don't show up on your resume. They don't get applause from the crowd, but they shift atmospheres. They unlock realms. They qualify you for assignments that talent never could, because gifting can be given instantly. But authority is forged in fire, and fire always costs something. Some of the most powerful people in the spirit are the ones who walk through life with silent grief, not because they're weak, but because they said yes to God, and that yes cost them everything. You walk around smiling, but there's an ache in your spirit no one can explain. You celebrate others, while your own promise is still on pause. And yet, you remain faithful, not because it's easy, but because you've seen too much to go back. Let me say this clearly. If you've ever wondered why your life is marked by quiet pain, if you've ever felt like the more obedient you are, the lonelier it gets, if you've ever said, "God, why do I keep losing things while doing the right thing?" The answer is this: you're not being emptied, you're being entrusted. The losses weren't random. They were sacred trades. Every no you gave the world was a yes you gave to heaven. And even if no one else saw what you laid down, heaven did, and heaven will never forget. So if it feels like your hands are empty right now, if it feels like everything familiar has been stripped from you, don't panic, because sometimes God empties your hands to fill them with glory. But here's the twist. Before He blesses you in public, He'll require obedience in private. Before you carry resurrection, you must first carry reverence. And reverence always costs. So here's the question you must ask yourself. Am I willing to pay the invisible price for a reward that can't be seen yet? Because only those willing to lose in secret can be trusted with victory in the spirit. But here's the truth no one likes to face. Even after your sacrifices, even after your isolation, even after your private obedience, the war doesn't end. It intensifies inside of you. And the next battle? It won't be around you. It'll be inside your own soul. Let's go there. Next, let's tell the truth. The loudest battles are the silent ones. The most dangerous war zones? They aren't physical. They're psychological, spiritual, internal. You've smiled in public and collapsed in private. You've shown up for others, while secretly praying someone would just show up for you. The real war isn't happening outside of you. It's not in your job. It's not in your enemies. It's not even in your circumstances. It's in your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your soul. And it's relentless. Because when you're chosen, the enemy doesn't just come after your life. He comes after your identity. He doesn't need to destroy your body. He just needs to convince your soul that it's worthless. If he can get you to doubt who you are, you'll destroy your own calling. So the battle begins. You wake up in the morning feeling like you're drowning in a storm that no one else can see. You go to bed exhausted, not from your day, but from fighting your own thoughts. Thoughts that tell you you're not enough, that you missed your moment, that God forgot you, that the pain is permanent, and maybe worst of all, that nothing inside you will ever change. But let me speak something to your spirit right now. That voice is not your own. That's warfare. That's the whisper of hell trying to mimic your own inner voice to make you believe you're broken beyond repair. But hear me. You are not crazy. You are not defeated. You are not unworthy. You are in a sacred struggle, one that only the chosen experience, because you are carrying something holy, and hell knows it. That's why your thoughts are under siege. That's why your emotions feel unstable. That's why sometimes you wake up with tears already waiting to fall, without knowing why. It's because you've been under spiritual attack for years. But you've survived it so well, people assume you've never struggled at all. No one sees the nights you rebuke thoughts of giving up. No one hears the prayers you pray just to make it through the day. No one knows how close you were to walking away from everything. And yet, here you are, still standing. You didn't fake your way through. You fought your way through. You bled spiritually. You questioned your worth. You battled anxiety and depression in silence. You carried the weight of destiny while dragging the chains of trauma. And yet somehow, you kept showing up. And do you want to know why? Because even when you felt broken, God was building something unbreakable in you. Every tear was a prophecy. Every breakdown was a doorway. Every moment you felt like quitting was actually a moment of intercession. Yes, those tears weren't weakness. They were spiritual warfare in liquid form. Because when your voice was too tired to speak, your spirit still cried out for victory. The enemy tried to convince you that your sadness meant failure. But what he didn't realize was that your tears were planting seeds. And now, something is growing. It's slow, it's subtle, but it's sacred. You are evolving in silence. And soon, what's been forged in private will be undeniable in public. But here's the part the enemy fears the most. You didn't just survive the attacks, you've learned to recognize them. Now, when doubt creeps in, you no longer agree with it. When fear whispers, you don't bow. When anxiety rises, you remind it, you've already been through worse. That's spiritual authority. That's maturity forged in fire. You didn't get that from a sermon. You got that from surviving the storm. And listen carefully. That spiritual battle, it wasn't just to torment you, it was to train you. Because what you've defeated internally, you will now have the power to cast out externally. Your inner war wasn't in vain. It was an initiation into something higher, into something weightier, into something holy. But before the breakthrough arrives, before the reward appears, there's still one more layer to uncover, because even after all the battles, there's something else that must die. The you that was good, but not yet great. Let's go there next. Yes, you've lost much. Pieces of yourself that you never thought you'd have to give up. Relationships you were convinced would last forever. Dreams that used to keep you alive, now buried beneath obedience. Seasons you'll never get back. Tears that no one witnessed. Parts of your personality that felt like identity, now burned to ash. But here's the paradox of heaven. God never takes without giving more. But the more he gives doesn't come until after the you were dies. This is the divine exchange, where your comfort is traded for clarity, your ego is traded for authority, your image is traded for identity, and the version of you that was accepted by everyone is traded for the version that is anointed by God. It doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't come with confetti. It comes after the fire, after the isolation, after the warfare, after the invisible sacrifices. And when it comes, it doesn't look like glory. It looks like peace. A strange, unshakable peace that tells you you're not who you were anymore. You speak differently. You walk with more precision. You discern quicker. You don't argue to be understood. You don't chase what you've outgrown. You don't explain what God never told you to advertise. Why? Because you've been refined. You don't need the approval of those who left. You have heaven's endorsement. You don't need the stage. You've become a sanctuary. You don't need the spotlight. You carry the light. This is what happens when you surrender to the divine death. You don't just survive it. You resurrect from it. But not as the same person. Not with the same name. Not with the same appetite. You come out of the grave with mantles. And mantles don't come from ambition. They come from surrender. Some of you have been wondering why your voice feels different lately. Why people pause when you speak. Why your presence shifts rooms, even when you don't say a word. It's because something invisible has been placed upon you. You've been marked. And that mark isn't for show. It's for assignment. You carry something now that can't be taken, because it wasn't given by man. This is what happens when God gives you a new name. And names in heaven aren't about titles, they're about transformation. Abram became Abraham because his destiny demanded expansion. Jacob became Israel because his wrestling birthed a nation. And you're not the same anymore either. Heaven has renamed you, and that name holds weight in the spirit realm. You died before you died, so now you can finally live without fear. Because what can death do to someone who already surrendered everything that could be lost? You're not afraid of rejection, because you were already rejected and still rose. You're not afraid of failure, because you've already failed in private and chose to keep going. You're not afraid of letting go, because you've learned that God never takes without transforming. This is where the old you ends and the real you begins. No more shrinking, no more self-sabotage, no more pretending to be okay just to keep peace with people who don't even recognize your purpose. You're walking different now, because you are different now. You've exchanged your plans for his process. You've traded your pain for his presence. You've let go of who you were, to become who you were always meant to be. And listen, if you feel like your old self is almost completely gone, if you don't recognize the person in the mirror anymore, don't panic. That's not a loss. That's a birthing. You're stepping into identity, into legacy, into divine authority. But before you rise fully, there's one more thing that must be declared over your life. Something final, something irreversible, something prophetic, and it's coming. In the conclusion, don't move, because what you're about to hear will not just confirm your journey, it will unlock your next one. This is where it all comes together. You didn't survive all of this to remain the same. You didn't cry those hidden tears, walk through that invisible hell, surrender what no one knew you had to lose, just to end up average. No, you are not broken. You've been reborn. You are not lost. You've been recalibrated. Every scar you carry is now a signature of heaven. A mark that says, this one endured the fire and didn't bow. You walk different now, not out of pride, but because you carry proof in your steps. Proof that death couldn't hold you, that depression couldn't drown you, that rejection couldn't rewrite you. The world doesn't need another copy, another trend, another echo of someone else's voice. The world needs your calling, your fire, your frequency.